The Catalyst activity with Living Well Seniors Communities provides us a fantastic opportunity to connect Indonesian nurses with Australian registered training organisations and skill up those Indonesian nurses as personal care attendants specialising in aged care based on an Australian standard. We look forward to Living Well Seniors Communities providing both services here in Indonesia to meet Australian standards, but vice versa. We look forward to the opportunity of training up, skilling up Indonesian care workers and enabling them to enter the Australian workforce to assist aged care operators and to ease some of those staffing issues which currently exist.
Hi, my name is Dan Gray and I'm from TAFE Queensland, and I've flown up here to Surabaya here at the Saputra University to run a digital literacy course. So in the digital literacy course, we are going to be covering a range of topics, including basically digital security, digital ethics, digital marketing and onboarding, as well as a few other topics.
Ya, hari ini sangat seru banget nih.
Kemarin lihat kontennya luar biasa.
Kita bisa berbincang dengan bahasa Inggris, jadi melatih juga kita buat belajar bahasa Inggris lebih.
Ini merupakan suatu ajang yang bagus buat kami untuk bisa berjejaring.
By the end of the course, we hope that the students will really get a better understanding of the tools that are available to them and how to use them safely.
Menyala Abang Den!
Sekarang belajar cukup pakai jari loh.
Maksudnya?
Iya, tinggal searching kursus online aja di internet.
Tapi aku mau yang terpercaya dari Australia. Aussie, Don Anden, idaman aku itu.
Pas banget, ada loh di Traveloka Experience. Tinggal pilih sesuai minat kamu, semuanya akan ada di Traveloka Experience.
Wah, udah paling bener nih.
Setelah pelatihan, kamu juga akan mendapatkan digital badge dari lembaga-lembaga Australia yang bermitra dengan Traveloka.
Dengan dukungan Katalis, meningkatkan keterampilan tidak lagi kenal batas.
Gimana? Udah nemu yang pas belum?
Pas dan tanpa batas.
So today we actually have the opening of the digital literacy training done by Catalyst and Catalyst partner TAFE Queensland and Traveloka and Universitas Ciputra.
Kita mengadakan digital literacy yang memberikan pengetahuan, keterampilan dan juga wawasan tentang keterampilan digital yang dibutuhkan di dalam pengembangan dunia pariwisata, khususnya di Jawa Timur.
And we also hope that there's a kind of engaging interaction whereby audiences or the training participant can share a candid issues in tourism industry, mostly in digital era, and we hope to have a kind of mutual solution and contribution and positive feedback after the program ends.
Menurut saya sudah tidak bisa dipungkiri lagi ya, Australia termasuk salah satu training provider yang terbaik di dunia. Harapan kami ya tetap berlanjut training tersebut, lebih ditingkatkan kualitas dan kuantitasnya.
Menjawab tantangan multidimensional yang dihadapi dunia usaha di tengah disrupsi dan konflik geopolitik membutuhkan sinergi dan kolaborasi kuat antar pengusaha.
Selama lebih dari 70 tahun bertransformasi, APINDO sebagai wadah kolaborasi pengusaha memegang erat 5 nilai Pancasila sebagai fondasi untuk menuju perubahan. Sebagai insan APINDO yang menjadi katalisator utama terhadap isu-isu penting yang mendukung agenda nasional dan internasional, kami terus berupaya mewujudkan iklim usaha yang kondusif, kompetitif, dan berkelanjutan untuk penciptaan lapangan pekerjaan.
Dengan mengembangkan 7 prioritas utama, APINDO terus berkomitmen memberikan pengaruh dan kontribusi yang signifikan, inklusif, serta berkelanjutan bagi roda perekonomian nasional. Dalam upaya mendorong transformasi APINDO untuk Indonesia maju, APINDO berkomitmen untuk mengembangkan 4 program unggulan, yaitu mengembangkan roadmap kebijakan ekonomi untuk panduan strategis pemerintah dalam melanjutkan reformasi struktural, mendorong pertumbuhan ekonomi yang inklusif dengan mendukung peningkatan kinerja UMKM, mereformasi kualitas SDM nasional sejak dini dengan pencegahan stunting, dan menerapkan program sertifikasi HR dan IR untuk peningkatan profesionalisme dan kualitas hubungan industrial yang dinamis.
Mari melangkah bersama untuk pengusaha bersatu Indonesia maju.
What is greatness?
It's doing what makes you feel proud. What feels right for right now. You define your greatness.
The Catalyst activity with Living Well Seniors Communities provides us a fantastic opportunity to connect Indonesian nurses with Australian registered training organisations and skill up those Indonesian nurses as personal care attendants specialising in aged care based on an Australian standard. We look forward to Living Well Seniors communities providing both services here in Indonesia to meet Australian standards, but vice versa. We look forward to the opportunity of training up, skilling up Indonesian care workers and enabling them to enter the Australian workforce to assist aged care operators and to ease some of those staffing issues which currently exist.
Hi, my name is Dan Gray and I'm from TAFE, Queensland, and I've flown up here to Surabaya here at the Saputra University to run a digital literacy course. So in the digital literacy course, we are going to be covering a range of topics, including, basically digital security, digital ethics, digital marketing and onboarding, as well as a few other topics.
Ya, hari ini sangat seru banget nih.
Kemarin lihat kontennya luar biasa.
Kita bisa berbincang dengan bahasa Inggris, jadi melatih juga kita buat belajar bahasa Inggris lebih.
Ini merupakan suatu ajang yang bagus buat kami untuk bisa berjejaring.
By the end of the course, we hope that the students will really get a better understanding of the tools that are available to them and how to use them safely.
Menyala Abang Den.
Zaman sekarang belajar cukup pakai jari loh.
Maksudnya?
Iya, tinggal searching kursus online aja di internet.
Tapi aku mau yang terpercaya dari Australia. Aussie, Down Under, idaman aku itu.
Pas banget, ada loh di Traveloka Experience. Tinggal pilih sesuai minat kamu, semuanya akan ada di Traveloka Experience.
Wah, udah paling bener nih.
Setelah pelatihan, kamu juga akan mendapatkan digital badge dari lembaga-lembaga Australia yang bermitra dengan Traveloka.
Dengan dukungan Katalis, meningkatkan keterampilan tidak lagi kenal batas.
Gimana? Udah nemu yang pas belum?
Pas dan tanpa batas.
So today we actually have the opening of the digital literacy training done by Catalyst and Catalyst partner TAFE Queensland and Traveloka and Universitas Ciputra.
Kita mengadakan digital literacy yang memberikan pengetahuan, keterampilan dan juga wawasan tentang keterampilan digital yang dibutuhkan di dalam pengembangan dunia pariwisata, khususnya di Jawa Timur.
And we also hope that there's a kind of engaging interaction whereby audiences or the training participant can share a candid issues in tourism industry, mostly in digital era, and we hope to have a kind of mutual solution and contribution and positive feedback after the program ends.
Menurut saya sudah tidak bisa dipungkiri lagi ya, Australia termasuk salah satu training provider yang terbaik di dunia. Harapan kami ya tetap berlanjut training tersebut, lebih ditingkatkan kualitas dan kuantitasnya.
Menjawab tantangan multidimensional yang dihadapi dunia usaha di tengah disrupsi dan konflik geopolitik membutuhkan sinergi dan kolaborasi kuat antar pengusaha.
Selama lebih dari 70 tahun bertransformasi, APINDO sebagai wadah kolaborasi pengusaha memegang erat 5 nilai Pancasila sebagai fondasi untuk menuju perubahan. Sebagai insan APINDO yang menjadi katalisator utama terhadap isu-isu penting yang mendukung agenda nasional dan internasional, kami terus berupaya mewujudkan iklim usaha yang kondusif, kompetitif, dan berkelanjutan untuk penciptaan lapangan pekerjaan.
Dengan mengembangkan 7 prioritas utama, APINDO terus berkomitmen memberikan pengaruh dan kontribusi yang signifikan, inklusif, serta berkelanjutan bagi roda perekonomian nasional. Dalam upaya mendorong transformasi APINDO untuk Indonesia maju, APINDO berkomitmen untuk mengembangkan 4 program unggulan, yaitu mengembangkan roadmap kebijakan ekonomi untuk panduan strategis pemerintah dalam melanjutkan reformasi struktural, mendorong pertumbuhan ekonomi yang inklusif dengan mendukung peningkatan kinerja UMKM, mereformasi kualitas SDM nasional sejak dini dengan pencegahan stunting, dan menerapkan program sertifikasi HR dan IR untuk peningkatan profesionalisme dan kualitas hubungan industrial yang dinamis.
Mari melangkah bersama untuk pengusaha bersatu Indonesia maju.
What is greatness?
It's doing what makes you feel proud. What feels right for right now. You define your greatness.
The Catalyst activity with Living Well Seniors communities provides us a fantastic opportunity to connect Indonesian nurses with Australian registered training organisations and skill up those Indonesian nurses as personal care attendants specialising in aged care based on an Australian standard. We look forward to Living Well Seniors communities providing both services here in Indonesia to meet Australian standards, but vice versa, we look forward to the opportunity of training up, skilling up Indonesian care workers and enabling them to enter the Australian workforce to assist aged care operators and to ease some of those staffing issues which currently exist.
Hi everyone, John Strain here from Catalyst. Apa kabar? Selamat pagi. Welcome to the first session in the series of online trainings held by the Indonesia-Australia Skills Exchange in collaboration with the Indonesian Employers Association, or APINDO. These trainings are designed to support Indonesian businesses in building future-ready teams and to introduce the Indonesia-Australia Skills Exchange platform. This platform is an exciting project that was launched in February this year and has brought together over 300 courses by around 50 Australian registered training organisations and has attracted over 130 Indonesian companies on board. Today's topic is on leadership in the workplace, and it will be presented by Jackie Martin, who is the Director of Solution Design from Deakin Co, which is part of Deakin University in Melbourne, Victoria. Whether you're stepping into a leadership role or sharpening your existing skills, this is your opportunity to learn from one of the best in the field. Please get your questions and comments ready. You can use the chat box throughout this webinar, which will be incorporated into the Q&A session. For translation services and other queries, please also use the chat box. That said, Jackie is happy for you to use the raise your hand icon at any time if you have a question. Today's session is being live streamed and recorded and will be available on the Catalyst website and on YouTube. To ensure smooth communication, we have translation in English and Indonesian. Sign language is also available for this webinar. To get started, Ibu Shinta Kamdani, Chair of APINDO, has kindly recorded her remarks. Let's go ahead and hear from Ibu Shinta.
Good morning, esteemed participants, partners from Indonesia and Australia, and a warm welcome to Deakin Company, our training partner for today's session. Let me begin by expressing APINDO's sincere appreciation to Catalyst for its strategic leadership in building and activating the IA-CEPA platform as a practical extension of the Indonesia-Australia CEPA. By connecting Indonesian workforce needs with Australia's training expertise, Catalyst has created a dynamic platform that delivers real value through structured, scalable collaboration. Let us be clear, the IA-CEPA is not a theoretical tool. It is a living, breathing interface between demand and supply, between learning and performance. The IA-CEPA platform has rapidly evolved into a practical data-driven mechanism, now connecting over 129 Indonesian businesses with 338 highly quality training offerings from Australian registered training organizations. This level of engagement signals both momentum and clear demand. Reflecting this reality, the APINDO Economic Roadmap survey shows that only 26.56% of businesses are satisfied with workforce quality, while 29.8% face challenges in finding quality talent. This underscores the urgent need for effective, targeted upscaling initiatives like IA-CEPA that directly address real business challenges. Today's focus on leadership in the workplace could not be more relevant. As Indonesian companies navigate a fast-changing economy, leadership is no longer defined by authority or tenure, but by the ability to build trust, drive performance, and foster inclusive, mentally resilient work environments. In APINDO's view, leadership development must be central to corporate talent strategies, particularly in addressing the future of work and preparing for Indonesia Emas 2045. We must also remember that every investment in people is a down payment on prosperity. We are proud to support the session delivered by Deacon Co, which bring extensive experience in enterprise leadership development. We believe Indonesia HR professionals, learning managers, and team leaders will benefit greatly from insights into emerging leadership competency and new approaches to managing people in increasingly complex environment. APINDO views this collaboration as more than a one-time program. It is part of a broader agenda to institutionalize skill-based workforce development in Indonesia. IA-CEPA enable companies to identify their unique upskilling priorities and connect directly with providers who are responsive and internationally credible. This is especially valuable in areas such as leadership, business management, communication, digital capability, and mental health, domains where Indonesia's skill demands continue to grow rapidly. Beyond this session, we hope IA-CEPA and Catalyst will continue expanding partnership, standing firm as Indonesia Incorporated and a shareholder of this nation. APINDO is committed to mobilizing our network and ensuring that this platform becomes a sustained channel for workforce competitiveness, one that aligns with national priorities and industrial needs. Let me thank the Catalyst team for facilitating this series, and once again, Deacon Co for leading today's training. We encourage all participants actively engage, ask questions, and share perspective, not only as learners, but as collaborators in building a stronger, more adaptive, and future-proof Indonesian workforce. I wish you a transformative and inspiring session, one that only imparts knowledge, but ignites a catalytic shift in how we define leadership in the modern workplace. Thank you.
Thanks, Ibu Shinta. You've heard about it, but what is the Indonesia-Australia Skills Exchange exactly? This next video explains in more detail.
There have been many partnerships between Australian education providers and Indonesian businesses, both for training in Indonesia and Australia. Now there is an easy way to connect with Australian education providers. It's the Indonesia-Australia Skills Exchange platform.
Hai Mbak Clarice. Hai Mbak. Apa kabar Mbak? Baik, apa kabar? Baik juga. Have a nice day ya Mbak. Yeah, you too.
Jump onto iaskills.org and see hundreds of courses by renowned Australian education providers. It's simple and straightforward. Everything is right there on the platform.
Should I take this to the meeting room?
Yeah, great.
For Indonesian businesses looking for training, there's a wide range of categories according to industry. There are different types of training, including micro-credentials, short courses, or other qualifications. Then, there are options for delivery methods that can suit your business, like virtual, in-person, or a mix of online and in-person training in Indonesia. You can also choose your preferred language, whether in Indonesian or English.
And boom, there it is. There's a couple of training providers offering this type of courses. After you select your course, the training provider will be in touch and you can discuss in detail about the training delivery.
If you haven't found the right course for you, you can request for a course to be designed for your business. The education providers will see it and may respond by sending a proposal or quote. You can then contact them directly. We have over 50 trusted Australian providers featured on the platform. These providers are some of the best vocational training organisations and universities in Australia, all with interest in delivering training in Indonesia.
TAFE Queensland are excited to be part of the Indonesia-Australia Skills Exchange Platform, or iaskills.org. It's a great initiative that connects TAFE Queensland and other institutions with Indonesian businesses, making it easier to access high-level training. This platform is a game changer, helping us build strong partnerships and opening doors to incredible training opportunities in Indonesia.
We've been working in Indonesia for more than 20 years, and most recently we've been collaborating with Catalyst on some online micro-credentials and short courses to assist with skills development. We're really excited about the launch of the IA Skills Exchange and look forward to making new friends across the Indonesian archipelago. We'll see you there.
Join us today!
Thanks for staying with us. Jackie is ready to deliver the training, but as we say in Indonesia, tidak kenal maka tidak sayang. Let's first get to know Deacon Co. Jackie, I haven't seen you since your training with Damri. When are you coming back to Jakarta?
Hi, John. No, it's been too long, hasn't it? It was a pleasure to be in Jakarta last year to work with the wonderful people at Damri. And I am hoping to be back, maybe July, August. It can't come soon enough.
Wonderful. I wonder if you could introduce Deacon Co for us, please.
Of course. Deacon Co is part of Deakin University, which is one of Australia's leading universities. But Deacon Co is what we call the commercial training arm of Deakin University. So it has access to all the wonderful researchers and academics within the university, but takes all that knowledge and makes it work ready, makes it directly applicable for organisations. So it's a wonderful combination of education and commercial nous. So we love working with organisations to help them really build their leadership skills.
Great, great. Would you like to start the presentation, Jackie?
Yeah, I'm just going to share my screen, John. So let's just make sure that this is all working. So I'm going to click the share button here, and I'm hoping that everyone is able to see my screen now. Is that right?
I can see that.
Fantastic. So I'm hoping, I've got some thumbs up from Farah. Thank you so much. All right, John, well, I'll get started.
Great.
It is such a privilege to be here. It's my afternoon because I'm in Australia, obviously, but to be here in your morning to be able to talk about leadership. Now, as John said, I live in Australia and I live in the little island called Tasmania, which is right down the bottom of Australia. And I live right down the bottom of that island. So where I am at the moment, it's cold and a bit wet and windy. And I actually just went and lit my fire so that I'll have something warm to go back to when I finish talking with you all. So heading north to come to my wonderful friends in Jakarta again to the warmth is something I'm really, really looking forward to. Now, the focus today, as you can see on the screen, is on leadership excellence. So how can we go forward into a future with confidence as leaders? I'm going to be focusing on the human side of things today. Now, my view is that as humans, We have made the world that we live in as it is at the moment. And so the answers to the leadership for the future lie in us as human beings being able to connect, to collaborate, to look after each other, and to learn in order to make our way to a sustainable business future. So my focus for today is going to be on the future is about humanity. All right, let's head through to the next slide. So we only have a short amount of time today, and we're not going to be able to go into huge amounts of information about each of these areas, but hopefully it will just tweak your interest and you will feel keen to go and explore a little bit more about what I talk about today. We're going to start by looking at what are some of the complexities of the leadership of the future? What are some of the challenges that you will have to face? And then what are the trends and the traits that leaders will need in order to be able to navigate those complexities and those challenges? And my view on this is that it all comes back to human-centered leadership. And so we're going to be teasing out what exactly does that mean. And a key component of being a leader that puts people first is emotional intelligence. So we're going to be unpacking a little bit about that today as well. And then how does emotional intelligence help you as leaders to bring that leadership presence into the workplace and into your work as a leader and connect with people? If we have time, hopefully, I will be able to just touch at the end on creating what we call psychologically safe workplaces, because in a psychologically safe workplace, people can be at their best. They can flourish, they can thrive, and they can bring all of their capacities to work to assist your business to be the best it can be. And then at the end, we will have a couple of reflection questions. As we go through the presentation today, there are a couple of times that I'm going to ask you to think about your leadership. Now, you may not be leading people as such that report into you, but everybody has a leadership role to play in an organisation. You might lead people who are your peers. You might lead people who report into you. You might just lead a project. Everybody has an opportunity to bring their leadership skills into the workplace, regardless of your position. So let's move on to the next slide. What are some of these challenges? Now, I am happy, by the way, to share these slides with Catalyst, if that's okay, John. I can see you here on the screen, but if that's okay, you might be able to make the slides available to everybody, because I know there's lots of information here that people won't be able to grasp straight away in the short amount of time. But one of the biggies that is a challenge for us in the future is technology and artificial intelligence. It is just ramping up so fast. I've started using it, and I have to say, initially I was going, but I actually find it very useful these days, as long as you still bring that human element to it. That's the key. Climate and sustainability. How do businesses manage to balance their profit plus their environmental and sustainability goals? I don't know about you in Indonesia, but every time I turn on the news, I see people being bombed, I see war, I see all sorts of conflicts in our world today. How do we cope with this instability? Workforces are changing, remote work, cyber attacks, cyber security. How are we going to handle those? And how do you weigh up all the stakeholders that have an expectation of your business? You may have young people working for you who want you to focus on sustainability. You may have shareholders who want profit. How do you navigate all these challenges? And how do you do it? By building resilient organisations, organisations that thrive. And as leaders, how do you do this? These are some of the traits that you're going to need. Being adaptable, flexible, clinging onto old methods is not going to be the way to be able to navigate this uncertain future that we have. The ones in blue here are the ones I'm going to focus on today in the session. So emotional intelligence, building trust with your team so that you can know that when the pressure is on and you want them to give that 110%, they will do it. And our teams are getting more and more diverse. So understanding diversity and being able to embrace that and leverage the diverse skills that people bring and the experiences that they bring. Systems thinking, it's not just simple little bits here and there. It's one big picture. How do all the parts of your business interconnect? Being fluent digitally, super critical these days, and having meaning. What's your value? What's your purpose? What's your social impact for your business? The other two I will focus on are collaborative influence. So how can you lead through partnership rather than that top-down control, but also resilience, a big word that's used a lot today. What does resilience mean? And how can, as leaders, you perform under pressure while still maintaining and modeling some of those healthy boundaries? We know that if you burn out at work, you're not going to be able to lead or contribute effectively. So we don't want to get to that point. And effective leaders will bring all of these traits together and use them as a holistic approach to human-centered leadership to be able to adapt and approach and manage these complex modern challenges that we have. All right, so if we can do all that, we'll have all the answers. All right, let's move on and unpack some of these in a little bit more detail. Human-centered leadership prioritizes the well-being of your people. It prioritizes growth, and by that I mean learning. It can be formal learning, but also learning on the job, learning from making mistakes sometimes as well. That's how I learn. Lots of mistakes made in my career, but that's how I've learnt to change things and to grow and develop. Human-centered leadership is about authenticity, being you, being real, and seeing and understanding that the people in your business, the people you are leading, are the foundation for you achieving results. Because if you don't get the people right, if you can't manage your people, then those business results will not be where you want them to be. Now, I was thinking about this question today. Can you think of a leader who embodies human-centered leadership? Now, I can think of one. In my little state of Tasmania, where I live, we have a basketball team called the Tasmanian Jack Jumpers. Now, a jack jumper is an insect about this big that gives you a really nasty bite on the foot if you tread on it. But the basketball team is called the Jack Jumpers. Now, the coach of the basketball team is one of the most amazing leaders I have seen. The team has only been around for 2 years, but he has taken that team to win the Australia-wide competition in basketball. How has he done it? He's humble. He is positive. He focuses on the wins and he focuses on the players' strengths. He also gets out into the grassroots community. He goes to little tiny schools that exist right up in the, some of the most remote parts of Tasmania. He is there and he is talking to the kids and he is engaging the kids. So to me, this guy, Scott Roth is his name, is just one of the most amazing leaders I have seen and heard speak. Have a think, who do you know? Who comes to mind when you think about a human-centered leader? And if you can think of someone, can you pop it in the box and maybe 2 or 3 reasons why that person comes to mind for you? If you could pop that in the chat, that would be brilliant. Now, there's a lot of you on this call, 279 people, according to my little number here. I'm not going to be able to read all your chats, but hopefully you could see some of these ideas coming through. So pop it, anybody who you can think of who is a leader who has some of those authentic people, human-centered qualities. I'm hoping that there might be some people who can pop a couple of ideas in the chat there. Ah, Obama, absolutely. Yeah, he would have been my number 2 choice. He demonstrated many wonderful skills. I see Pope Francis there. Absolutely. What a wonderful leader for our world. Abraham Lincoln, great. It doesn't have to be modern day. We can go back in history. That's wonderful. Oh, my father, Esther, wonderful. That is so lovely to be able to say your father is one of your role models. Bill Gates, yes, thank you, Yandy. So some wonderful ideas coming through here of people. So human-centered leadership prioritizes people's needs and development, and that enables them to achieve organizational goals. Create those conditions where people thrive and where you can drive those results. So let's unpack what human-centered leadership means. The first one is empathy. Now, what does empathy mean? Empathy means, and I'm going to use a phrase here, putting yourself in someone else's shoes. So rather than always seeing things from your perspective, you put yourself in the emotional shoes of somebody else. That is empathy. And empathetic leaders are leaders that people can connect with. A development focus, growing people's capabilities and potential, not just getting them to perform. What do you need as a team member in order to be able to do your job? That is what human-centered leaders will focus on. What do you need to grow and learn so you can do your job and commit to this business? Psychological safety is about feeling that you can take a risk, feeling that you can make mistakes, feeling that you can ask questions if you don't know the answer. Having a shared purpose. Meaning and purpose are 2 very important aspects for someone to be engaged and committed in the workplace. And human-centered leaders will make sure that their people understand the purpose of the business and why they are there. Personalization. Everybody in the workplace is different. And some people will need to be led in a certain way. Other people might need something different. So a human-centered leader will understand that we're not robots. Everybody needs a different approach. And openness and reliability, trust and transparency. So these are the critical things that a human-centered leader will need to bring to the workplace that will be effective in engaging and leveraging their teams. And why do these skills matter? Well, the research shows us that if teams have a human-centered leader, their levels of engagement are much, much higher. Now, why does that matter? Well, again, the research shows us that if you have an engaged employee, and this is someone who's prepared to put in the hours, go that extra mile, ask questions, put ideas on the table, if you have an engaged workforce, your outcomes as a business will be superior to those who don't. And being a human-centered leader enables you to build the conditions for people to be engaged in their work. It's not about being artificial. This is about being real. And we know from social media that you can hopefully spot people who are being inauthentic. And it's the same in the workplace. Being an authentic leader will enable you to engage. And there's a bit of a paradox here, isn't there? If you're a leader, sometimes people feel that means I can't show any weakness. I can't say that I don't know the answer. I can't say that I have made a mistake. But you actually can. And the paradox here is that that builds strength and respect with your team It doesn't demonstrate weakness. So leaders can transform their team culture through making these authentic connections with the people around them. And one key way as a leader to be able to do that is to bring your emotional intelligence to the fore. Now, emotional intelligence, or EI, sometimes it's called EQ, emotional quotient. I call it EI, emotional intelligence, is a skill that can be learned and improved. I remember taking my first emotional intelligence test about 15 years ago, and I thought I was going to do really well. At the time, I had a team I was leading of about 120 people. And I thought to myself, how can I have to have high levels of emotional intelligence in order to be able to do that. And so I took this emotional intelligence test. And it turned out my emotional intelligence was pretty poor. And I was quite shocked by that. But after a while, at first I sort of thought, oh, well, this test must be wrong. But after a while, I started to think, well, maybe there is something I can learn here. And over the years, I have really tried to increase my levels of emotional intelligence. And I took the test again recently, and my scores have almost doubled. And so it is something that you can work at and improve. So what is emotional intelligence? It is the ability to monitor your emotions. So to know and be able to accurately say, what do you feel right this very minute? And I use the word accurate, right? Because sometimes people are not accurate. But also to be able to look at other people and say, what is that person feeling right now? And how can I help them? Or how can I use that information to help that person be more effective in their workplace? So how do you use that information you get about yourself and about others to guide your thinking and your decision-making as a leader? So emotional intelligence is about using that information to guide your behavior, to guide your thinking, and to guide your decision-making as a leader. If we are emotionally stressed or sad or scared, some of those negative emotions, we will not make good decisions. This isn't just my views. The research shows us this. Your decisions will be poor. So being able to manage your emotions, to know when to make decisions, to know how to behave, will enable you to show up as a far more authentic leader for your teams. So why does it matter? You can build trust and loyalty, right? So if you can understand, and remember that word empathy we used, if you can be empathetic and put yourself in someone else's shoes, then you will build that trust with the individuals in your business. I've just mentioned this second one. It improves decision-making. So if you make a decision when you're just reacting emotionally to something, that is not going to perhaps be as thoughtful a decision as if you use your self-awareness to make decisions when you are in a better place. Emotional intelligence enables you, and I don't know if you have this phrase in Indonesia, but to read the room. So when you go into a meeting or you're working with a team of people, reading the vibe of that room. What's going on here? How are people feeling? Everyone seems to be a bit on edge. I wonder why that is. Or people seem to be very quiet and down. What's going on here? So being able to use that ability to read a room and then improve your messaging so you can actually build the emotional space in that room. That's what we mean. You can also recognize early signs of stress with your teams, early signs of disengagement. And again, what's going on with this person or what's going on with this team, and ask some of those questions. And it also enables you to really drive results. So if you can have a high EI or EQ, You will have better retention of your team members, and retention is important because every time we lose someone and we have to hire someone new, it's a cost, and you have all that organizational knowledge walk out the door. So by having a higher IQ, you will be able to better retain your team, build the morale of your team, and as a result, have improved effective performance. There are 4 domains to think about with emotional intelligence. And again, I can't go through all of this today because we just don't have the time. But it begins with self-awareness, recognizing your own emotions, recognizing what triggers you. All emotions have a trigger. So what is triggering you in the workplace to feel a certain way? And are there any limitations to how you work when you are under pressure? Because pressure brings that sense of stress and anxiety. So in the left quadrant here, recognizing you, this is where it all starts, self-awareness. What am I feeling? What are my strengths? What are my limitations? How can I use this information to build my self-confidence? Then you look at how do I actually manage myself in the workplace? What levels of self-control do I have? Am I honest and transparent? Do I operate with integrity? So these are the me here, recognizing and regulating self. And then on the other side of this model here, how can you be empathetic, understand what's going on in the organization with other people, and then how can you lead and influence people? How can you help others to develop? How can you use your emotional intelligence to help change management and to help conflict management? So it's a very complex model, but it starts with your own self-awareness. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to give you a little bit of a challenge to start to get to know your own emotional self and your own EI. So we're going to look here. There's a 2-minute daily EI check-in. And so I want you to have a little think through this. In the morning, there is 1 minute where you just ask yourself 3 questions. And the first question is, and this might be when you are starting at work for the day, how am I feeling right now? So am I feeling stressed? Am I feeling positive? Am I feeling concerned or worried? What's going on? So being able to name how you feel. Now, there's a reason for that, which is neurological. Our brains like us to be able to name our feelings, then you can better manage them. And then anticipate what might happen during the day. Is there going to be something that might trigger me to be stressed today? And what is the energy I want to bring? And then at the other end of the day, again, 1 minute reflection. What emotions did I experience today? How did I handle difficult moments? And what did I learn about myself or other people? And then you can have a think, well, was there one win that I had? And what is the improvement I'm going to make for tomorrow? And if you repeat this every day for 6 weeks, it usually takes about 6 weeks, it is like doing a little mini workout. It's like going to the gym, but going to the gym for your emotional self. And your self-awareness will be built over time until it becomes almost automatic for you to check in with yourself every day. So I challenge you when you receive these slides to go back to this slide and say, okay, I'm actually going to try doing this for 6 weeks to see if I can build my emotional intelligence, starting from this area of self-awareness. All right, so if you can show up as a human-centered leader with that focus on emotional intelligence, then you're going to be bringing what we call a leadership presence into your business. And this is really super important for engaging your people and taking them with you. So what do we mean by leadership presence? Again, I won't go through all of these, but it's about authenticity. It's about being fully present not distracted or rushed. How many times, have a think, you're coming into a room and someone said, oh, can I speak to you for a moment? Oh, no, I can't speak at the moment. I'm too busy. Are there times when you just need to put the busyness aside and say, okay, I'm here. What can I do to help you? It's about aligning values and behavior in the workplace. So people like to see consistency in their leaders. So if you say, here are the values of our business, as a leader, are you actually demonstrating those values in the way you behave to your people? And this values and behavior alignment is really important, because if your values and your behaviors are different, that is when you get conflict. And that is when people feel they can't trust you as a leader because of inconsistent behavior. Clear communication is another one. Influencing through respect. People follow you because they want to, not because of your position or your authority. And this is one of the key aspects of being a human-centered leader. People want to work for you. Not because they have to, they want to. So leadership presence. And it's also about that physical presence as well, being fully present in conversations. And we're going to have a look at what listening means in a minute. Deep listening to somebody. Values alignment, as I mentioned before, and that emotional presence with others. But I want you to have a think about maybe the last time you had an interaction with your leader. How present were they? Were they, I don't know whether you can see what I'm holding up here, my mobile phone. How often do you have a conversation with someone, but they're actually on their mobile phone? It happens a lot, doesn't it? And what happens then is your brain sort of says, oh, this is a bit of a threat. And so you start having a conversation that is built on threat, not genuine connection. So what does this mean from the perspective of actually engaging and listening with your people? Right. So there is a big difference between hearing what someone is saying and actually truly listening to it. And there's 3 levels of listening. And listening is one of the key ways that you can start to embrace human-centered leadership. The first level of listening is listening to yourself. So someone else is talking, as I am now, but you're actually more focused on what's going on inside you. You're thinking, what am I feeling? Have I done the shopping? What do I need to do tomorrow? Did I change my dental appointment? You're not actually listening, right? You're more focused on yourself. The second level of listening is better. It's about focusing on what the person is saying to you. And you can nod and say and ask questions and use body language to show that you are listening to somebody. However, it's not about listening and waiting for someone to stop talking so you can start telling what you think. Give the person space. Allow them to be able to speak rather than you always coming in with your view. And the third one is empathy. And this is the highest level of listening. It's listening with absolute empathy and understanding of how that person feels. Creating space for pauses. We often feel we have to fill a space. If someone stops talking, you come straight in and start talking. You don't have to. Sometimes a pause is a really good thing to put in. Have a think about what else that person might want to say rather than you coming in. And this last one, I do a lot of coaching of leaders and looking at strengths-based coaching. And this fix it mentality is something I hear all the time. People say, well, someone's telling me about their problems, therefore I can tell them how to fix it. That's not always what people want or need. If you keep fixing your team members' problems for them, they're never going to learn to fix it themselves. And it means you're doing everybody else's job without doing your job. So this fix it reflex, I can solve it for you. Try and put that to the back, because sometimes people just need to talk something through and then they can come up with their own answers. And that's a learning opportunity for them. So this is, I love that fourth dot point for me is one of the key things about leadership, helping people grow and understand and solve problems themselves. There's another slide here again to enhance that into conversation, focusing on people's strengths, addressing some difficult topics with people, sharing your own personal narratives. This is what I did, or this is where I went wrong. Again, being authentic. And again, on this slide, when you receive the slides, you can go through these and have a think about how can you build genuine connection with people, not just small talk. How often do people say, oh, how are you today? And people say, oh, I'm okay. I'm not bad. We can go beyond that. We can be a little bit more sophisticated as leaders. What are you enjoying about your work right now? Is there anything you're struggling with? Where do you see the biggest opportunities for our business? These are questions that will encourage conversation, curiosity, listening, and you never know what might come up for you when you actually start being curious about the people who you work with. I think this listening and curiosity, if you take two things away today about being a human-centered leader, it is about listening genuinely to your people and being curious, genuine curiosity, asking questions and taking an interest in them. And those two things will make an amazing difference to your leadership. Now, there's a self-evaluation tool which I've included in this slide deck. Now, I don't think we have time to go through all the questions in here, but when you receive it, I really suggest that it would be good for you to do a little bit of an evaluation on your own leadership presence. So questions such as, do I make eye contact when I'm talking with somebody? Do I carry myself, my physical presence? Am I poised and composed, or do I run around and rant and throw things? Let's have a really, a very open reflection on yourself as to where you sit on some of these questions. Mental presence. Do you stay focused during conversations? Ask yourself the question, what's your genuine answer? Do you demonstrate intellectual curiosity with your team members? Can you articulate and talk about your thinking in a way that everyone can understand? Or do you use words that go over the people's heads? Are you fully focused during a conversation? Emotional presence. These are some of the EI questions. Do you inspire confidence and trust? Are you emotionally steady, or do you fly off the handle, which is an expression we use here in Australia? And the last one is values presence. So do you align your values and your behavior? Do you bring your real self to work? So you can go through these 4 self-check slides and add up your score and see, yes, maybe you need to develop a little bit more with your leadership presence. Focus a bit more on your emotional intelligence. So some questions for you to think about. When you think about human-centered leadership, what strengths do you already possess? And which ones do you need to focus on or build a little bit more? How confident are you in your emotional intelligence? Is it something that you need to focus on and work on a little bit more? Is it something you need to learn about and investigate more? How do you show up authentically? What could you do to demonstrate a little bit more vulnerability with your people? And what are 3 immediate actions that you could take, you could change this week that would make a difference to you as a leader? So ask yourself some of these questions and be really honest in your answers. And just to finish off, I'm going to touch on psychological safety. Now, a lot of the reading I've done around psychological safety is from the research of someone called Amy Edmondson. And I might just pop that in the chat for you, if that's okay. Amy Edmondson, and she is at Harvard University in the US. She's got a couple of really good TED Talks on what does psychological safety mean to business success. But when we're talking about psychological safety, essentially, if you can show up as a human-centered leader, then you are already well on the way to building an environment of psychological safety for your team. It's about having the courage to say that you're wrong or you're unsure. Oh, sorry, I'm just seeing someone is getting the wrong translation. That's all right. I'll leave that to the technical people. But can you admit uncertainty? Can you say I made a mistake? Can you ask for help as a leader? It's about curiosity over judgment. So if someone does make a mistake in your team and you're the leader, rather than judging perhaps how they've gone, can you ask them questions? What went wrong here? How could we do it better? What would you do differently next time? So that it's a learning opportunity for everybody, but that your people feel they are able to admit to you that they've made a mistake. When I was leading people, I hated surprises. I hated when someone came to me and said, uh-oh, this went wrong. I was, I wish I'd known beforehand. I would have been able to help you. Creating learning moments instead of moments where you say, you made a mistake, I'm going to punish you. And modeling vulnerability so that you have that openness as a team to speak up. It's a speak up culture. And that's what we want to create as human-centered leaders. Again, a checklist here that you can have a look at later when you receive the slides or when you go on to read a little bit more about Amy Edmondson's work. But she's done some really interesting work. I think initially it was with Google around their workplace and how the safe workplace contributed to the results that Google had as a business. So I've come to the end of my presentation. I will stop sharing my screen. I'm sorry if I've gone over time. I'm sometimes not very good at keeping to time. I get a bit excited. But I hope that this has given you some things to think about with regards to how we can navigate a human future for our businesses where people are respected, where people can thrive and have full lives, both at work and outside of work. So thank you very much for listening to me today. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here.
Very interesting material. Thank you, Jackie. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
There's still some time left, so we can go to the question and answer session. Please put your questions in the chat box or raise your hand if you have some more questions. Jackie, we've already got some really great questions through.
Okay.
I'll start with the first from Rifki Habibi from the wonderfully named Creative Young Farmers Cooperative of West Java.
Oh, I love it.
I love it. So we're not talking about top-down corporate environment. And Rifki has asked, how do you define effective leadership within a cooperative setting? And what would your approach be to mentoring the next generation of leaders of this cooperative?
Okay.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you. Defining effective leadership, big question, and thank you. But I love the fact that you're asking about that question in a cooperative, because I think you need to think about leadership at different levels. Remember at the beginning of my talk, I said leadership can be positional in that, this is the CEO or this is the manager, and you have people reporting to you. But you can also lead effectively by influencing your peers, by working with your peers and supporting across at that flat level. So in a cooperative, you're looking at a flat structure, I would imagine and assume. So effective leadership there, I would say, is if everybody feels they can have a voice, if people feel that they can ask a question, if people feel they can put an idea on the table and it will be considered appropriately and authentically and not just dismissed. So to me, you would define effective leadership at that level by people feeling they are heard, feeling they can contribute, and feeling they can also call out where they need support and assistance. So I think that Amy Edmondson's psychological safe workplace is a really good model to be thinking about with regards to the sort of cooperative you're talking about there. And I can't remember the second part of the question, John.
Mentoring for the next generation of leaders for the cooperative.
Yeah. So mentoring can be either formal or informal. Formal mentoring, you can set up pair people within the organization or find people from outside of the organization who share the values and goals that you're trying to achieve, and pair people with someone from outside the organization as well. So you can do a formal mentoring program like that, which can work really effectively. And then there are those little, what I call the informal mentoring moments that occur every day when you're working alongside somebody. And if you have a situation where you have done something previously that could assist that person, you can have a little 5-minute conversation. Oh, when I worked here, the same thing happened to me. This was how I managed it. That might be just useful for you to have a think about. So there's informal and formal mentoring methods, and I think you probably need both.
Great, thank you, Jackie. I'll jump on to a more general question that we had through from Gayatri Nirwesti, who said, in the digital era, we can work from anywhere. Mm-hmm. So how do you manage a team virtually? If you had any tips, we actually would really appreciate it.
Okay, yes, I have managed many teams virtually, and obviously especially since COVID-19 came along. My personal view is that firstly, it can't take the place of ultimately having a in-room connection with somebody, but it does bring huge benefits as well to engaging more diverse teams, enabling people to juggle family responsibilities and work, etc., etc. So it has a lot of benefits. I think as a leader, you have to be very intentional about your connection with each of the people you are working with in a remote way. When we are together physically in a workplace, we have lots of ad hoc interactions with people at the water cooler. Oh, John, would you like to come and get a coffee with me? Let's have a chat. And then whilst we're having coffee, we end up, talking about strategy and something else and something else. And before you know it, we've made decisions or progressed something. Now, that doesn't happen, obviously. So I think you have to be very intentional to check in with your people every day, if it's possible, depending how many people you're talking about, or bring people together as groups every day. I think the beauty of Teams as well, or Zoom, is just being able to ring and someone flashes up on the screen. Oh, I've just got a question for you. So deliberately using the technology to enable you to at least see each other's faces rather than emailing all the time. I'm really down on email. I want to get rid of email because we just hide behind all these words. They can be misconstrued and you don't have that authentic connection. So to me, it's about intentionality as a leader to connect, even if it's only for 5 minutes. And this is where some of those questions come in that I had up earlier about genuinely asking, how's your family even? What I remember your mother was sick. Is she better? So some of those things that we just do automatically in the workplace, if we're physically present, you have to be very intentional about how to do that on a day-to-day basis using the technology.
Great. Thank you, Jackie. I have another question that I imagine applies just as much in every other country in the world, this time from Rehan Pradana, Rentokil Indonesia. Rehan was asking, when you're dealing with a multi-generational team and diverse personalities within that team, what leadership skills are the most crucial for building trust, maintaining motivation, driving high performance, in today's environment? So,
Well,
thoughts, please, Jackie.
Yeah, you're probably not going to be surprised by my answer, but it is coming back to emotional intelligence, curiosity, listening. It is about it's about relationship. We're people, right? We build relationships with each other. And I use the phrase that if you can build a strong relationship with someone, get to know them, understand their values and strengths, so that you can also communicate your values and strengths. If you can build this connection, then everything else will flow from that. It's what I call money in the bank. And so, yes, you will be dealing with multiple generations and they all have different demands. The younger generations are demanding very different things in the workplace to people my age and expecting very different things. But if you have a culture of relationship and open conversation and you manage your emotions and help other people manage theirs and be empathetic, you are well on the way to getting the people right, as I keep saying. If you can get your people right, the business outcomes will flow from that.
Great. Thank you, Jackie. It seems like your material on emotional intelligence resonated with Asri from Tax Prime. Asri has a question. Can emotional intelligence abilities fade over time? And what can be done to maintain it?
Look, like any, yes, I think like any skill, I used to be very fit and I'm perhaps not quite as fit as I used to be. So my fitness may have faded over time as I have got older because I haven't used it or kept that consistency. So if you remember in my presentation, I talked about that a little self-awareness check-in every morning and every evening. And I said to do it for at least 6 weeks until it becomes a habit. And it takes that long for a habit to form, about 6 weeks. So your EI, if you are not using it, if you don't consistently you will lose it. So yes, you have to use it or life.
Great. Thanks, Jackie. Jackie, we have another question from Esther Mahar, who is interested in psychological safety. Esther was wondering if you think leadership quality is influenced by culture and gender stigma, and could that unintentionally put people in a psychologically unsafe environment?
Well, I could probably talk about that for another day, I suspect, John. What
I
a good
know you can.
What a good question. The answer is yes, it does. So, if we are talking about a psychologically safe working environment, it is a working environment where people feel safe to call out behaviors that may be discriminating against them or behaviors that may be threatening against them, like bullying, etc. So if you're in an environment where you do not feel psychologically safe, if you're feeling harassed, discriminated, bullied, overlooked, left out, whatever it might be, then you're probably not going to raise that issue if you don't feel safe to do so. Oftentimes people won't raise those issues because they feel they may then experience further pushback against them. They may be overlooked for a promotion. They may not be included on a special project or whatever it might be. So if you are in an environment where you don't feel you are able to speak up and be authentic, then those sorts of behaviors are more likely to fester and to continue. So as a leader, if you can create an environment of psychological safety, then if there are those behaviors of discrimination, harassment, exclusion, bullying, whatever it might be, then you're more likely to see them for starters, and secondly, to have people raise them with you before they escalate into something that's perhaps out of control. So the answer is absolutely yes, there is a link between those two.
Thanks, Jackie. Look, we have a question from Anita Fitria, who asks, how should you take on a leadership role in a new workplace? So some tips for a new leader coming in.
Yeah. Oh, great question. Great question. There's nothing worse than a new leader coming in and trying to change everything in the first 5 minutes. So my first suggestion would be to listen. And you again, I'm on a theme here. Listen, ask lots of questions, and ask, why do we do things this way? Or what's the history here? Because what you'll find is when you go into a new leadership role, people will have been doing things their way for maybe some time. And so people can sometimes get very concerned about change. Oh, we have a new leader coming in. Does that mean they're going to change everything? And so people will be perhaps a little bit unsure or uncertain of what's going to happen. So again, building those relationships with people, giving them credit for their institutional knowledge. If your team has been there a lot longer than you, give them credit for what they have done. Give them credit for what they know. Ask them for their help and their assistance and their suggestions. So this will build rapport and get people on side with you. So I think the first 3 months in a leadership role, you listen, you ask questions, you have meetings with all those identify the critical people you need to build connections with in that first 3 months, and you go all out to build those to build those relationships with those key people. Who are your key stakeholders? Who do you need to get to know? And deliberately set out to build relationships with those people.
Great, Jackie. Thank you. There's a similar type of question from Don, who notes that, in Indonesia, people might respect you for your age or how long you've been in the company. What are some tips for a younger leader who's come in and actually might not have been in that company for as long as some of the team members? How should a leader like this approach their role?
Yeah, another very good question. And I do understand that in Indonesia, as you say, some of those, the respect can be built on longevity of service, on age, on perhaps the places you have worked. all those things. I think for a younger leader coming in, the respect can be built around ideas, innovation, thinking differently, whilst still being respectful, obviously, of what older leaders in the business. So you're not refuting what they bring to the table, you're trying to add to it. So being respectful and say, oh, that's a really good way of doing things. I was wondering if we added this bit, it could make it even better. So it's by acknowledging their expertise, acknowledging their experience that they bring, and then perhaps bringing some of that innovation thinking or creativity or digital and technology. But I think it starts with respect of what already is, and then you try and you build on that. And the same happens in Australia too. It's not, we can't just walk into an organization and suddenly throw everything out and bring our new ideas in and expect them all to be just taken on board. It doesn't happen. So it's the same here.
Excellent. Thanks, Jackie. It seems your presentation resonated with some really practical issues that people are having in the workplace. Novi Chostiana has asked, what is a leader supposed to do if the team is very passive, just always waiting for instructions, no initiative? What can the leader do in this instance? Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, great questions you're getting here, John, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so sometimes teams are like that and they want to be told what to do. I turn up to work, I'm going to wait until you tell me what to do. And that's perfectly fine, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But what you are doing is you're maybe losing out on some of the ideas or innovations or contributions that those people could bring above and beyond that. And so again, I think it is about saying, well, here's what we're going to be doing in our business. This is what we're going to be focusing on for the next month. Here's what I expect you all to do. But I've got some questions for you. Have person X, can you think of a way of doing this differently? And could you come back to me with some ideas, please? Or person Y, do you know of a time when this has been done before? Have you done anything similar? So again, it's about not suddenly throwing it all open and people not knowing what they are meant to do, because that wouldn't work. But within the parameters of what it is that they feel they can do, start to just extend them a little bit by giving them perhaps a question to think about, or something that's a little bit outside of their role. Oh, I've noticed you're really good at editing. Would you mind editing this document for me that I've just written? I'm not very good at editing. So identifying their individual strengths and trying to extend them a little bit by giving them some things that will play to their strengths, so they're still going to feel safe, but they can step outside of that little circle they've put themselves in.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jackie. Jackie, Desi Indriani has asked for more information about emotional intelligence. So how do we assess our EQ development? So is it something you would do once a year, or where do you find the assessment tools, and where do you start?
There are a number of different assessment tools for emotional intelligence. There are some that are what we call an absolute tool, which is like a test. And that is, it's called, I'm just going to type it in here. It's called the Mesquite Assessment. And if you Google that, you'll be able to find out more information about that. And that is a test. So you get a score. And that's what I did many years ago. And so you can actually as I say, build on that score, and you can take it. Probably 12 months would be the minimum amount of time before I would do a reassessment, because when it comes to things about our emotional intelligence and our emotional health, it takes time to make change. So if you do want to perhaps focus more on being able to manage your emotions in the workplace, that's not going to happen overnight. That will take time. So yeah, maybe a year apart for the to see if there's progress. There are also then assessments which are what we call a self-assessment, so that you could actually assess yourself. Here's what I think about my emotional intelligence abilities. And then you can also ask others. So it has a 360 assessment component to it as well. And so they can be used whenever you want, but obviously they're not an absolute test in that you're not getting a score. It's your perception of your emotional intelligence. And as we know, in a lot of these self-perception or self-assessments, we tend to sometimes rate ourselves higher than we actually are. Don't know why. And the 360 enables you to get a view of what your colleagues or other people think of your emotional intelligence as well. And there's one there that's Genos, and there's also, I think it's called EQ2. I can't remember the name of it now, sorry. But if you Google Genos, that comes up. That's a self-assessment. EQ2, I think it might be as well. I'll see if I can find that out. I can't remember.
Thanks, Jackie. Excellent. Jackie, we have a question from Uhuan Suban, who asks, how do you manage teams when they really don't like a decision that you've had to make? And I suspect Uhan is also asking, how do you manage that as a leader yourself when you're working with a team? And obviously nobody likes delivering that type of news. Thank you.
Can everyone hear me again? I just completely disappeared.
Yes.
Okay, so sorry, I was talking about the emotional intelligence assessments, and there's Genos, there's the EQ2, there's the Mesquite. There is also, as someone just popped in the chat, the work from Daniel Goldman. He's done a lot of work in this space. And the Mesquite, the MSSC stands for Mayer, which is, I think it's Jack Mayer, Salavi, and Caruso. They're the three researchers. David Caruso. They have done a huge amounts of research in this space as well. So that's what it's Mayer, Salavi, Caruso. And if you Google Mesquite assessment, that will come up as the full name, and you'll be able to see the names of those researchers.
Great, Jackie. Look, I think we've got time for one more question.
Okay.
And this one is how can human-centered leadership build trust and resilience in community-based programs?
That's an interesting question, isn't it? I think human-centered leadership can build trust, respect anywhere. And so regardless of the construct of where you are working, whether it's a cooperative, whether it's a community-based program, whether it's a very hierarchical, I don't know, bank or finance, large organization, small organization, I actually don't think it matters. If you have human connection, authenticity, and build strong and solid relationships, then the purposes and the strategy and the intent of whatever organization you are working in will be able to be progressed and achieved through that human-centered leadership. So even at a volunteering level, at a charity level, at a family level, like it applies across the board. So I think it support
Thanks, Jackie. That was great. Excellent questions. Thanks, everyone. The next training will take place on the 4th of July at 10 a.m. WAIB on the topic of mental health in the workplace, and will be delivered by Phoenix, Australia from Melbourne University. Phoenix is Australia's leading mental health training organisation. Thanks to Jackie and the team from Deakin Co for an excellent training session today. Also, our deepest appreciation to APINDO for a great collaboration. Before we go, let's please take a group photo. Can everyone please turn on your cameras, and we'll take photos for the first 3 pages of this webinar. For page 1, let's go in 1, 2, 3. Thank you, everyone. For page 2, thank you guys. Let's please go in 1, 2, 3. That's excellent. Thanks so much. And for page 3, can we please go in 1, 2, 3. Thanks to everyone in the audience for participating. As mentioned earlier, today's event is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube with a link provided on the Catalyst website and in social media. E-certificates are available and will be issued within 1 week by email. Take care for now, and we look forward to welcoming you at the Indonesia-Australia Skills Exchange at iaskills.org. Thanks, everyone.
What is greatness?
It's doing what makes you feel proud. What feels right for right now. You define your greatness.
The Catalyst activity with Living Well Seniors Communities provides us a fantastic opportunity to connect Indonesian nurses with Australian registered training organisations and skill up those Indonesian nurses as personal care attendants specialising in aged care based on an Australian standard. We look forward to Living Well Seniors Communities providing both services here in Indonesia to meet Australian standards, but vice versa. We look forward to the opportunity of training up, skilling up Indonesian care workers and enabling them to enter the Australian workforce to assist aged care operators and to ease some of those staffing issues which currently exist.
Hi, my name is Dan Gray and I'm from TAFE, Queensland, and I've flown up here to Surabaya here at the Saputra University to run a digital literacy course. So in the digital literacy course, we are going to be covering a range of topics, including, basically digital security, digital ethics, digital marketing and onboarding, as well as a few other topics.
Ya, hari ini sangat seru banget nih. Kemarin lihat kontennya luar biasa.
Kita bisa berbincang dengan bahasa Inggris, jadi melatih juga kita buat belajar bahasa Inggris lebih.
Ini merupakan suatu ajang yang bagus buat kami untuk bisa berjejaring.
By the end of the course, we hope that the students will really get a better understanding of the tools that are available to them and how to use them safely.
Menyala Abang Den.
Zaman sekarang belajar cukup pakai jari loh.
Maksudnya?
Iya, tinggal searching kursus online aja di internet.
Tapi aku mau yang terpercaya dari Australia. Aussie, Down Under, idaman aku itu.
Pas banget, ada loh di Traveloka Experience. Tinggal pilih sesuai minat kamu, semuanya akan ada di Traveloka Experience.
Wah, udah paling bener nih.
Setelah pelatihan, kamu juga akan mendapatkan digital badge dari lembaga-lembaga Australia yang bermitra dengan Traveloka.
Dengan dukungan Katalis, meningkatkan keterampilan tidak lagi kenal batas.
Gimana? Udah nemu yang pas belum?
Pas dan tanpa batas.
So today we actually have the opening of the digital literacy training done by Catalyst and Catalyst partner TAFE Queensland and Traveloka and Universitas Ciputra.
Kita mengadakan digital literacy yang memberikan pengetahuan, keterampilan dan juga wawasan tentang keterampilan digital yang dibutuhkan di dalam pengembangan dunia pariwisata, khususnya di Jawa Timur.
And we also hope that there's a kind of engaging interaction whereby audiences or the training participant can share a candid issues in tourism industry, mostly in digital era, and we hope to have a kind of mutual solution and contribution and positive feedback after the program ends.
Menurut saya sudah tidak bisa dipungkiri lagi ya, Australia termasuk salah satu training provider yang terbaik di dunia. Harapan kami ya tetap berlanjut training tersebut, lebih ditingkatkan kualitas dan kuantitasnya.
Menjawab tantangan multidimensional yang dihadapi dunia usaha di tengah disrupsi dan konflik geopolitik membutuhkan sinergi dan kolaborasi kuat antar pengusaha.
Selama lebih dari 70 tahun bertransformasi, APINDO sebagai wadah kolaborasi pengusaha memegang erat 5 nilai Pancasila sebagai fondasi untuk menuju perubahan. Sebagai insan APINDO yang menjadi katalisator utama terhadap isu-isu penting yang mendukung agenda nasional dan internasional, kami terus berupaya mewujudkan iklim usaha yang kondusif, kompetitif, dan berkelanjutan untuk penciptaan lapangan pekerjaan.
Dengan mengembangkan 7 prioritas utama, APINDO terus berkomitmen memberikan pengaruh dan kontribusi yang signifikan, inklusif, serta berkelanjutan bagi roda perekonomian nasional. Dalam upaya mendorong transformasi APINDO untuk Indonesia maju, APINDO berkomitmen untuk mengembangkan 4 program unggulan, yaitu mengembangkan roadmap kebijakan ekonomi untuk panduan strategis pemerintah dalam melanjutkan reformasi struktural, mendorong pertumbuhan ekonomi yang inklusif dengan mendukung peningkatan kinerja UMKM, mereformasi kualitas SDM nasional sejak dini dengan pencegahan stunting, dan menerapkan program sertifikasi HR dan IR untuk peningkatan profesionalisme dan kualitas hubungan industrial yang dinamis.
Mari melangkah bersama untuk pengusaha bersatu Indonesia maju.